people don't change that much. I think they recognise those people whose commitment has been constant, and they know that those standards are not changing.
Princess Anne has revealed why William and Catherine turned against Camilla, and the truth was not buried in gossip or another quarrel. It was sitting in writing, a document, one sentence. When Anne placed it on the table, William would not look at Camilla's name. That sentence appeared to confirm what he had feared for months. Camilla was not interfering in palace decisions. She was preparing to control matters that would belong to his reign. And Catherine had already paid the price. The interview began without ceremony. Anne sat opposite a journalist with William and Catherine beside her. A file rested beneath her hand. She said the relationship with Camilla had not collapsed overnight. William tolerated repeated interference to protect Charles. Catherine swallowed insult after insult to preserve unity. But their patience ended when Camilla's office used the king's name to override them, then pulled Princess Charlotte into the struggle. The room fell silent. Anne said Camilla had presented personal wishes as instructions from Charles. Senior aides were pressured to bypass William. Ceremonial decisions changed before Catherine could object. Each message carried the same warning. The king wanted it. The king had approved it. Cooperation was expected immediately. Yet Charles had signed nothing. At first, William accepted the changes. His father had only recently become king, and the monarchy was adjusting after Queen Elizabeth's death in September 2022. Catherine urged restraint. She did not want another family conflict spilling beyond palace walls. They believed stepping back would protect Charles. Instead, their silence created an opening. If you believe Anne was right to stand with William and Catherine against Camilla, do not stay silent. Like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who refuses to let Camilla control the future. Watching without responding only helps bury the truth. Hi viewers, was Anne right to expose Camilla, yes or no? Leave your answer below. The first warning had appeared months earlier. A senior appointment chosen by William's household was delayed after Camilla's office claimed Charles wanted greater coordination. William accepted the explanation. Then another instruction arrived. And another. Different subject. Same wording. Same pressure. No direct approval. One experienced aide noticed the pattern. Several disputed messages had not passed through Charles's private office. They moved directly from Camilla's household to senior staff while carrying royal authority. That distinction mattered. A suggestion from Camilla could be questioned. An order from the king could not. Catherine raised one altered arrangement with Charles in private. She expected him to defend it. Instead, he looked confused. He had never seen the request. He had never approved the language. He did not know why his name had been attached to it. Everything changed in that moment. William was no longer facing an over-involved stepmother offering advice. He was confronting a system in which his father's authority could silence him. Catherine understood something more painful. Her objections had been dismissed because resistance looked like disobedience to the king. Still, she did not confront Camilla publicly. She wanted proof. Names, dates, original instructions. Anne later said that restraint was the last kindness Catherine offered. It ended when a protected arrangement involving Charlotte was quietly rewritten, despite Queen Elizabeth's clear wishes. Catherine objected inside a closed palace meeting. Camilla dismissed her concern in front of senior officials and insisted the change reflected the king's decision. Catherine said nothing more. She simply left and contacted Charles herself. He had never approved it. That was the break. But even the Charlotte incident was not the full story. The document beneath Anne's hand showed that Camilla's requests reached beyond staffing, ceremonies, and one child's position. They reached into Queen Elizabeth's private legacy and toward decisions reserved for William's future reign. Anne had underlined one sentence twice. Before she revealed it, she warned that the words would explain why William and Catherine no longer believed Camilla wanted cooperation. They believed she wanted control. According to Anne's account, the first disputed instruction had seemed harmless. In May 2023, months after Charles settled into the throne, William's household selected an aide to coordinate his expanding public duties. The appointment had passed internal checks, References were complete. Security clearance was moving forward. Then the process stopped. A message arrived from Camilla's office. It said the king wanted greater coordination before any appointment was confirmed. The wording was polite, but the effect was absolute. No one wanted to be accused of resisting Charles. William accepted the delay, even though the decision concerned his staff. Catherine noticed something else. The request carried no note from Charles. No private secretary had attached approval. No date showed when the king had reviewed the appointment. It simply arrived with his authority assumed. William still chose patience. He understood the pressure on his father. Charles was trying to reduce confusion, calm rivalries, and create the appearance of a smaller monarchy. A delayed appointment did not seem worth a family dispute, so the Wales household stepped back. That decision would be repeated. By October 2024, another instruction reached William's team. This time it concerned how responsibilities would be divided during a ceremonial event. A role assigned to one of William's aides had been transferred to someone connected to Camilla's household. Again, the explanation was the same. The king wanted consistency. The king wished to avoid competing offices. The king expected the change to be accepted. And again, there was no signature. One experienced aide began keeping copies. Every email, every revised schedule, every note that used Charles's name without showing his approval. At first, the file looked like routine administration. Then the same phrases started appearing too often. Greater coordination, unified direction, final approval through the Queen's household. The pattern was becoming visible. Different decisions were being changed, but the advantage always moved in one direction. Camilla's office gained access. William's staff lost control. Catherine was expected to accept each alteration quietly, because questioning it could be presented as questioning the king. That was the trap. In June 2025, the pressure moved from staffing into ceremony. William had approved a seating and procession plan for an event involving senior royals. The arrangement was changed after it left his office. Catherine's position remained respectable, but practical decisions were shifted away from her team. She asked why. The response came back quickly. Charles preferred the revised plan. Catherine did not challenge the message in writing. She waited until she could speak with Charles privately. The conversation was calm, almost ordinary. She mentioned the alteration and asked whether he had concerns about the original arrangement. Charles looked at her as if she had raised the wrong document. He had not reviewed it. He had not requested a change. He had not been told that his name had been used. For Catherine, that moment carried more weight than any public disagreement. The problem was no longer difficult communication between two households. Someone had discovered that Charles's name could end an argument before it began. William was told that night. His first reaction was disbelief, then anger, then control. He did not confront Camilla. He ordered his staff to trace every instruction that had been presented as the king's wish. The review was narrow at first. It examined appointment delays, altered schedules, guest lists, ceremonial notes, and access to records linked to Queen Elizabeth's private legacy. What emerged was not one order. It was a chain of small interventions, each easy to excuse, each difficult to challenge, and each leaving Camilla's office with more influence. One message stood out. It directed senior staff to seek approval through the Queen's household before briefing William on a matter connected to Elizabeth's private records. That instruction did not simply bypass him. It placed Camilla's office between the future king and decisions tied to his grandmother's legacy. William wanted an explanation. Catherine wanted proof. Anne would later say this was the point when the couple stopped treating the issue as a family irritation and began examining it as a deliberate pattern. Still, Catherine resisted open confrontation. She knew what would happen if the dispute leaked. The story would become another feud. Camilla would be portrayed as misunderstood. William would be accused of impatience. Catherine would be blamed for division. So she waited. Then, in early February 2026, a restricted planning document arrived at the Wales household. Most of it looked familiar, timings, entrances, seating positions, staff assignments. But one name had been moved: Princess Charlotte. The change was small enough to escape casual attention, yet serious enough to violate an arrangement Queen Elizabeth had personally protected. Catherine read the page twice. Then she saw which office had requested the revision, and the meeting was approaching. This time, silence would not protect anyone. The meeting began on February 17th, 2026, at Buckingham Palace. No cameras, no press. Only senior officials and household representatives expected to approve the arrangement before it was locked into place. Catherine arrived with one concern. Princess Charlotte's position had been moved. The change looked minor on paper. One line shifted. One name placed beneath another, yet the meaning was unmistakable. Charlotte would no longer remain within the immediate Wales grouping during the event. She would be redirected into a secondary position controlled by Camilla's household. That was not what Queen Elizabeth had approved. Years earlier, Elizabeth had made her preference clear. The Wales children were to remain under their parents' direct guidance whenever their appearance carried constitutional meaning. It was not simply about where a child stood, it was about who had the right to decide. Catherine opened the original plan beside the revised version. The room grew still. The tension became unmistakable. She did not raise her voice. She pointed to the alteration and asked why her daughter's position had been changed without consultation. A private secretary lowered his eyes. No one answered. Then Camilla's explanation came. The revision reflected the king's wishes. That sentence was designed to close the matter. Catherine understood what it meant. Any further objection could be framed as resistance to Charles, not disagreement with Camilla, not concern for Charlotte, disobedience to the monarch. Still, Catherine refused to move past it. She asked whether Charles had personally reviewed the page. The decision had been discussed. The household had been informed. The arrangement reflected the broader direction of the reign, but that was not an answer. Had Charles approved the change himself? Camilla did not provide a signature, a note, or a message from his private office. Instead, she dismissed Catherine's concern as emotional and suggested that ceremonial decisions could not be shaped around one mother's preference. The words landed hard. Charlotte was not being discussed as a princess. She was being treated as leverage. Catherine's authority as her mother was reduced to sentiment, while Camilla's preference was presented as royal necessity. Everyone in that room understood. No one interrupted. Catherine closed the folder. That silence was not surrender. She did not argue because she no longer trusted the room. Anything she said could be repeated differently. Any anger could be used against her. So she remained controlled, thanked the officials, and left. Camilla believed the matter was settled. It was not. Within the hour, Catherine contacted Charles directly. The question was simple. Had he ordered Charlotte's position to be changed? Charles had not. He had not reviewed the revised plan. He had not instructed anyone to move Charlotte. He had not authorized his name to silence Catherine's objection. The answer confirmed everything. This was no misunderstanding between households. It was a direct use of the king's authority without the king's approval. William received the details later that day. He read both versions of the plan, then the notes. What angered him most was not the altered position, it was the method. Catherine had been made to look unreasonable before officials. Her concern for Charlotte had been dismissed, and the decision had been protected by a claim Charles later denied. William saw the trap. If Catherine accepted the change, Camilla's office gained control. If Catherine objected, she could be accused of challenging the king. Either outcome weakened the Wales household. That was deliberate. If Catherine was right to protect Charlotte and refused to let Camilla use the king's name against her, viewers should like the video, subscribe, and share it now. Anyone who supports William, Catherine, and Anne should not watch silently while Camilla's actions are hidden behind palace language. William did not call Camilla. He did something more serious. He ordered a full review of every decision that had reached his household bearing Charles's approval. Dates were matched, routes were traced, private secretaries were questioned, instructions were compared with the king's schedule and briefing records. The result was worse than expected. Some messages had reached senior staff on days when Charles had never seen the documents. Others used phrases absent from his office's correspondence. Several decisions had been finalized before William was informed. Catherine had suspected interference. William now saw a system. Once the review began, officials started speaking. One admitted that questioning Camilla's office had become difficult because every request was presented as part of the king's wider plan. Another revealed that staff had been told to avoid giving William full details until decisions were nearly complete. Then one name surfaced. Princess Anne. Anne had already heard about the meeting. Not from William, not from Catherine, from an official who had been inside the room and could no longer pretend the exchange was normal. She asked for the original plan, then the revision, then every note attached to it. By the next morning, Anne had begun comparing those papers with Queen Elizabeth's protected instructions. What she found showed that Charlotte's position was not the end. It was evidence of something much larger. And Anne was already holding the document that would expose it. Anne did not rush to confront anyone. That was never her style. She began with paper. The original instructions from Queen Elizabeth were stored in records at Windsor. They were not dramatic documents, no grand declaration, just language about continuity, responsibility, and the protection of arrangements involving the Wales children and the late Queen's private legacy. Anne read every page. Then she placed the new correspondence beside it. The differences were immediate. Elizabeth's instructions kept authority close to William and Catherine when decisions involved their children, their household, or duties connected to the future reign. The newer papers moved that authority outward. Staff were told to seek approval elsewhere. Ceremonial positions could be adjusted without direct consultation. Access to private legacy records was to pass through Camilla's office before briefing William. It was not one change. It was a transfer. Anne asked who had drafted the language. The answer came slowly. Several offices had contributed, but one memorandum had shaped the direction. It was titled Household Continuity and Coordination. The name sounded harmless, administrative, almost dull. That was the disguise. The memorandum had been circulated on March 18, 2026, under restricted distribution. Only senior aides had received the full version. William's household had been given a shortened copy with key paragraphs removed. Anne requested the complete file. There was hesitation. She requested it again. By evening, the document was on her desk. The first pages dealt with staffing. They proposed that senior appointments connected to William's growing duties should be reviewed through a central household structure. The next concerned ceremonial presentation. It recommended that final placement decisions should remain under the Queen's office whenever there was disagreement. Then the language changed. The memorandum moved into Queen Elizabeth's private legacy. It requested access to sealed records, personal correspondence, and arrangements that had been left under separate protection. The reason given was continuity. Anne did not accept that word. Continuity should preserve a decision. This document appeared designed to replace one. She turned another page. There, the future became the subject. The proposal did not limit itself to Charles's reign. It discussed the period in which William would receive more authority, attend more state meetings, and prepare for responsibilities that could no longer be delayed. Camilla's office was asking to remain involved in matters that would eventually sit beyond its reach. That was when Anne stopped reading as a sister. She began reading as someone who understood power. The document described William and Catherine's household as difficult to coordinate. It warned that independent decision-making could create confusion. It suggested stronger controls were needed before any formal transfer of authority. The words were polished. The meaning was not. Anne marked one paragraph, then another. Finally, she reached a sentence near the bottom and underlined it twice. She did not call William immediately. First, she checked the routing history. A handwritten note instructed staff not to send the full draft to the Wales household until the structure had been agreed. Another notation showed that one of Charles's private secretaries had asked for clarification but never received the supporting file. The king had not been given the same version. That mattered. Anne now saw two realities moving through the palace. One version was shown to Charles, softened and framed as coordination. Another contained the deeper request for control and remained inside a smaller circle. She contacted William that evening. The meeting took place at Windsor, away from the palace offices. Catherine was present. No aides remained once Anne opened the folder. She showed them the title page first, then the circulation list, then the handwritten instruction to withhold the complete draft. William read in silence. Catherine watched his face before looking down at the pages herself. The Charlotte incident had wounded her. This document explained why it had happened. It had been a test. If Catherine accepted the change, the method worked. If she objected, she could be described as resistant. Either way, Camilla's office gained evidence that the Wales household needed tighter control. Anne turned to the final marked page. She did not read the sentence aloud. Not yet. Instead, she asked William one question. Had he ever agreed that his future authority should be supervised through Camilla's household? The answer came quickly. No. Catherine's answer was quieter. She had never even been asked. That was enough. Days later, inside the private interview room, Anne placed the same folder on the table. William sat beside Catherine, but neither reached for it. They already knew what it contained. The interviewer asked whether Camilla had simply been trying to prevent disorder during a difficult transition. Anne looked down at the memorandum. Then she looked up. Stability, she said, did not require deception. Coordination did not require hiding full documents from the future king. Respect did not involve dismissing Catherine before officials while using Charles's name without proof. Her hand moved toward the underlined sentence. The interviewer asked her to read it. Anne paused. That sentence, she said, was why William and Catherine stopped believing Camilla wanted cooperation. It was also why reconciliation had become impossible. Anne lifted her hand from the page. Nobody spoke. William stared at the underlined line. Catherine remained still. The interviewer waited, sensing that the document had reached the point everyone had been brought there to hear. Then Anne read the sentence. The Prince and Princess of Wales can be managed until the formal transfer of authority is complete. Nothing in the room moved. The wording was calm, administrative, almost bloodless, yet its meaning struck harder than any open insult. William was not described as the future king. Catherine was not treated as the woman who would one day stand beside him. They were presented as two people whose resistance could be contained until power shifted beyond Camilla's reach. For William, the sentence changed the entire pattern. The delayed appointment, the altered ceremony, the hidden draft, Charlotte's position. Every incident now appeared to lead toward the same objective. His authority was not being respected as something already taking shape. It was being treated as a problem to control. That was the betrayal. William had spent years supporting Charles through the transition of his life. He had accepted uncomfortable decisions, defended the monarchy during pressure, and resisted another family conflict. Yet the document suggested that his loyalty had been interpreted as permission. Catherine read the sentence differently. She saw every room in which she had remained composed. Every objection she had softened. Every time she had chosen silence to protect Charles from embarrassment. The memorandum made those moments look less like peace and more like evidence that she could be pushed. Charlotte's altered position had not been careless. It had been a demonstration. Camilla's office had tested whether Catherine would accept a change involving her daughter once the king's name was placed behind it. When Catherine objected, her concern had been dismissed as emotion. When she later discovered Charles had given no approval, the humiliation became impossible to explain away. Anne closed the folder. The evidence now had to reach Charles. The meeting took place behind closed doors. William attended with Anne. Catherine chose not to enter. Her absence carried its own message. She no longer wanted another discussion in which the seriousness of what happened could be softened into misunderstanding. Charles was shown the memorandum, not the shortened version that had reached his office. He read the marked paragraph twice. According to Anne's account, his reaction was clear. He had never approved language suggesting that William and Catherine should be managed. He had not authorized Camilla's household to extend its influence into William's future reign. He had been told the document concerned coordination during a transition. The full version said more. Camilla's explanation was careful. The word managed, she argued, referred to schedules, offices, and duties. It was not meant as a personal judgment. The intention had been to prevent competing households from creating confusion while Charles remained on the throne. Anne did not accept it. Words could be explained, the pattern could not. Staff had been bypassed, papers had been withheld. Charles's name had been attached to instructions he never saw. Catherine had been overruled before officials. Charlotte had been repositioned without her parents' approval. That was not coordination. It was control wearing formal language. Charles now faced the choice the document had tried to avoid. He could defend its intention or admit that his authority had been used too freely inside his household. William did not ask him to choose between his wife and his son. He asked for boundaries. From that day, every instruction crossing between households would require written authorization. No verbal message carrying the king's name would be accepted without confirmation from his private office. Sensitive decisions involving George, Charlotte, and Louis would remain with William and Catherine unless Charles directed otherwise. Access to Queen Elizabeth's protected records was restricted. Camilla's aides lost the ability to review Wales' household appointments before William received them. Informal discussions ended. Ceremonial changes could no longer be finalized through side channels. The response was quiet. That made it more damaging. There was no public accusation, no demand that Camilla step aside, no dramatic announcement. Instead, the doors through which influence had moved were closed one by one. Inside the palace, people understood what had happened. Some staff considered the rules overdue. Others believed William had created a second center of power before his father's reign had ended. The Queen's household viewed the restrictions as isolation. The Wales team saw them as protection. Catherine made her own decision. She would remain courteous in public. She would fulfill every duty required of her, but no request from Camilla's office would again be treated as Charles's command without proof. The trust was gone. Anne returned to the interview with a detail. William and Catherine had never demanded revenge. They had chosen something more permanent. They removed Camilla from every private decision concerning their children, their household, and the authority William would one day inherit. But Charles had not revealed how he intended to respond, and that decision would determine whether the family fracture remained hidden or became impossible for the palace to contain. Charles did not answer immediately. For several days, the palace operated under a silence that even senior staff were unsure whether the king would defend Camilla, support William, or force both households back into the old arrangement. Diaries continued. Engagements went ahead. Photographs showed familiar smiles. Behind closed doors, nothing was familiar anymore. Charles understood what the document had done. It had removed the protection of ambiguity. Before Anne placed the memorandum before him, every dispute could be explained as confusion, poor communication, or an overzealous aid. Now there was a sentence, clear, recorded, directed toward the Prince and Princess of Wales. He could not erase it. Camilla remained convinced that the language had been misunderstood. She believed the monarchy required one center of control while Charles was king. To her, separate households created rivalry, leaks, and competing loyalties. But William saw the same argument differently. One center of control meant one office deciding what he could know, when he could know it, and how much authority he was allowed to exercise. Catherine had reached an even simpler conclusion. No one would use her children again. From that point forward, every arrangement involving George, Charlotte, or Louis would be reviewed inside the Wales household before it reached any palace office. No position would be altered after approval. No instruction would be accepted merely because someone claimed it reflected Charles's wishes. The rules were not announced publicly, but they were understood immediately. A wall had gone up. Anne explained that this was the real reason the relationship could not return to what it had been. It was not because William and Catherine wanted conflict, it was because trust requires uncertainty to disappear in the right direction. Once they confirmed that Charles had not approved instructions issued in his name, the uncertainty disappeared in the worst possible way. They knew the method, they knew who benefited, and now they knew how far it was meant to reach. Charles eventually sent a message to William, asking for calm and warning that visible division would harm the crown. William agreed that the public should not be dragged into a household struggle. He promised professionalism. He did not promise trust. That difference mattered. At future ceremonies, William would stand where duty required. Catherine would greet Camilla with composure. Anne would maintain the discipline expected of the king's sister. To anyone watching from a distance, the family might appear united. But the old access was over. Camilla would no longer be included in discussions about the Wales children. Her aides would not shape William's appointments before his team reviewed them. Requests touching Queen Elizabeth's private legacy would require documentation. Even routine messages would pass through formal channels. Every door remained open for duty. Every private door closed. If viewers support Anne for refusing to let William and Catherine be managed in silence, they should not stop at watching. They should like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who believes Catherine was right to protect Charlotte. Silence allows powerful people to rewrite what happened, and anyone who supports William, Catherine, and Anne should make that support impossible to ignore. The public response would have been difficult for Charles to predict. Many people had accepted Camilla's place beside him because they believed the family had reached a quiet understanding. Anne's account threatened that belief. It suggested that the smiles seen at services, banquets, and balcony appearances concealed a struggle over who controlled the future. That was why the document mattered more than any argument. An argument fades. A document remains. Anne's final point was the hardest. William and Catherine had not turned against Camilla because Anne persuaded them to. Anne arrived after the damage had been done. She simply found the proof that explained it. William had seen his future authority treated as temporary and manageable. Catherine had watched her concern for Charlotte dismissed before officials. Both had discovered that loyalty to Charles had been used to keep them quiet. So they changed the rules. Not loudly, not publicly, completely. Charles still had his reign. Camilla still had her title. William and Catherine still carried out their duties. Yet inside the monarchy, the balance had shifted. The future king no longer relied on goodwill from the Queen's household. Catherine no longer confused politeness with trust. Anne no longer believed private warnings were enough. The palace could preserve appearances. It could not restore what had been lost. And the most revealing detail was not the underlined sentence itself. It was the handwritten note attached to the draft, the note instructing staff to keep the memorandum away from William until the new structure had been agreed. Someone had expected him to find out too late. That question now hangs over everything. Who wrote that note? Who approved it? And why did one of Charles's secretaries keep a copy? The next video follows that copy into the office, where it was hidden, and reveals the name written beside the instruction to withhold the file. Do not miss it, because that name could show that Camilla was not acting alone.